Chapter 1591. Jojo, why don't we find an inn to stay at first? After we settle down, we'll go out for a stroll in the city. What do you think? Actually, the two didn't have any luggage. It was just that when they went out, they carried a small cloth bag with them to hide their identities. Apart from a set of old clothes and food, there was basically nothing else in the cloth bag. The two girls were meticulous and kept a low profile. In addition, Auber's newly made aura-concealing talisman was already a yellow-level talisman, so it could completely conceal their cultivation aura. Once it was affixed, it could be maintained for a month, allowing the two to look like ordinary people when they walked outside. Other than Auber's attractive appearance, no one would know that they were great mystic cultivators above level 13. Being outside was different from being at home, so they naturally had to be careful and take precautions in everything they did. Qi Xianxian said with a smile, "Sigh, that Joy Pavilion's boss still has some conscience. When we left, he even gave us 10 meat buns for free. It's rare for him to be so magnanimous. If it weren't for these 10 meat buns, I would definitely tear down his Joy Pavilion before I left. What an unscrupulous merchant, charging us so much for lodging. It's 20 spirit coins a day. Including food, it's 40 spirit coins a day. The most abominable thing is that this guy isn't willing to give us a discount. Asking him to reduce his food and lodging expenses is like asking for his life. It's simply unreasonable." Auber's mouth twitched, and he helplessly glanced at her. "Actually, this is only a small amount of money. The two of them stayed at Joy Pavilion for 6 days and only spent a little more than 200 spirit coins. It's not too expensive, right?" Tycoon Qiao thought. Previously, he had spent 480 spirit coins on the land whale. "Although it's a small amount of money, we can't let this unscrupulous merchant swindle us." Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks. "All right, I know you'll live a frugal life." Auber nodded and said, "Then I'll leave the task of finding a good inn to you." Qi Xianxian smiled. "All right, just wait and see. I'll definitely find a cheap and comfortable inn." After all, he would probably have to stay in Anka City for a period of time before he entered the academy, so it was his top priority to make himself comfortable. The two of them walked through the bustling streets of Anka City and headed toward the inner city. The sounds of hawking on both sides of the street were mixed with all kinds of voices, creating a lively scene. Qi Xianxian skipped and skipped as she walked in front of the crowd. Sometimes, she would run to the front of the crowd to watch others juggle. Other times, she would join in the fun to watch others do business. She had a smile on her face the entire time. Auber observed her for a long time. She raised a small hand and touched her ice-cold little stoic face. She criticized inwardly. This is probably how girls of the same age behave normally. Shua! Suddenly, a large folding fan that was large enough to cover her entire face unfurled in front of her. The words on the fan read, "Romantic and elegant, tasting half a lifetime's worth of delicacies. Like a jade tree facing the wind, tasting the flowers of the world." Written in the middle were the words, "Beauty like jade." What a load of crap. Auber looked up and saw a man in his late 20s with a large black mole at the corner of his mouth. His beady eyes were shining as he looked at Auber, and the saliva at the corner of his mouth was about to drip down. Chapter 1592. Auber looked at that person in disgust and walked to the side. Unexpectedly, the young man with the black mole also moved 2 steps to the side and continued to block her path. He smiled obsequiously and said, "Where are you going, little lady? Big brother will send you back." "Idiot!" Auber shouted coldly, her stoic face expressionless. Ji, idiot? Who was she talking about? That man turned back to look at the 4 burly men accompanying him and simultaneously put on an expression that said, "Young master, I'm an idiot." The man nodded in satisfaction and turned to face Auber with a chuckle. "Little lady, this young master is the son of the 3rd steward of Anka City's city lord residence. Let's get to know each other." Scram! Qiao Mu's concise and comprehensive words expressed her inner impatience. Auber stared expressionlessly at the man with the big mole in front of her with a cold expression, her thin brows unconsciously furrowed. Qi Xianxian ran to Aba's side and glared at the man with the big mole in anger. She shouted coldly, "Who are you?" One look at this person's wretched face and she knew that he wasn't a good person. He actually dared to block her Jojo's path. Was he tired of living? The man with the big mole chuckled with an ugly face. Scram. At that moment, he could only see the little iceberg's stoic face. He hated that his mother didn't give birth to him with 2 more eyes. Of course, he didn't like the round-faced Qi Xianxian who only had a delicate and pretty face. Qi Xianxian was instantly enraged. "Hey, who are you telling to scram? Who are you?" This young master is the son of the 3rd steward of Anka City's City Lord residence. "Who do you think I am?" The man with the big mole smiled smugly. "In the entire City Lord residence, my father's authority is second only to the City Lord, the senior steward and the 2nd steward. My father only needs to say one word, and the 2 of you can immediately be chased out of the city. So, little lady, do you want to?" Before the man with the big mole could finish speaking, he suddenly realized that the little lady in front of him suddenly moved. A body-securing talisman landed on Big Mole's body. The man with the big mole suddenly felt that he couldn't move his body. He stood upright on the street and stared at the little girl in a daze. What was going on? Why couldn't it move? Just now, he saw the girl take out some kind of talisman and throw it at him, and then he couldn't move. If that was the case, then it must be this little girl's doing. The man with the big mole stared at Arbor in shock. When he opened his mouth, he realized that he couldn't make a sound. He couldn't help but panic. What's going on? How come even his voice was damaged? Could it be this little girl's doing again? Was this girl even human? Without saying a word, he pinned him down in the middle of the street, making the passers-by look at him like he was a monkey. Now, he was even poisoned into a mute. Oh my God! Didn't he just find her cute and wanted to talk to her? Was there a need to make him so miserable the moment she made a move? The man with the big mole didn't know that the body-securing talisman and the poison powder were just appetizers. Arbor slowly took out a water spirit talisman from his inner world. He lightly flicked it in his hand and suddenly opened the talisman. With a flick of his finger, the water spirit talisman suddenly split open. The water spirit energy that filled the air suddenly wrapped around the man with the big mole 2 or 3 times, wrapping him into a cocoon. Everyone on the street stopped in their tracks in fright. They all looked dumbfoundedly at the man with the big mole. Chapter 1593. They all had some impression of this man. Wasn't he the son of the 3rd manager of the City Lord's estate? He was the only son of the 3rd manager's family and usually caused a lot of trouble in Anka City. No one dared to provoke him because of his father's special authority. If they provoked him, his father would definitely jump out, and at that time, they would have to bear the consequences. Perhaps even their right to live in Anka City would be taken away. Hey, look! The 3rd manager's son seems to have kicked an iron plate. Everyone took pleasure in his misfortune. Although they were only secretly communicating and making sarcastic remarks, their eyes faintly revealed excitement. Great, someone could finally teach this wastrel a lesson for them. Go ahead and teach him a lesson, none of them would mind. The man with the big mole wanted to make a sound, but only a few monosyllabic words came out of his throat. He looked at the little girl in front of him in a panic. The little stoic looked at him coldly without a trace of emotion in her eyes. Didn't you want to get to know me? Come, let the talisman in my hand get to know you. Attack talisman. Arbor's small hand shook, and to everyone's surprise, a dozen attack talismans appeared in this little girl's hand. This kind of yellow-level blue attack talisman's attack power already reached 80% of a talisman practitioner's cultivation. What did this mean? It meant that the dozen or so talismans that the little fellow casually threw out each had the power of a level 11 mystic cultivator's attack. At the same time, a dozen or so level 11 mystic cultivators launched a sudden attack at the man with the big mole. The man with the big mole really wanted to beg for mercy, but he had no other choice since he couldn't speak. The man with the big mole could only place his hopes on the 4 burly men behind him. Unfortunately, before those 4 burly men could attack, Qi Xianxian rushed forward and threw each of them far away with a punch. The man with the big mole was simply stupefied. He couldn't understand why the 2 little girls in front of him looked so mediocre and ordinary. They actually had such terrifying strength as soon as they attacked. He was well aware of the strength of those 4 burly men. Although level 12 mystic cultivators were nothing in Shuntian Prefecture, Wenka City was only a small city and was still some distance away from Shuntian Prefecture's capital. A level 12 mystic cultivator was considered one of the more outstanding people in Onka City. At this moment, the passers-by were unable to express their excitement with words. They secretly exchanged small glances and muttered a few strange words in low voices. They were extremely happy in their hearts that when they went back later, they would spread the news that Big Mole had been humiliated today everywhere. At this moment, the water spirit talisman had completed its final structure. Everyone looked again and saw that Big Black Mole was completely sealed in a square ice box. Separated by a large block of ice, Big Mole looked at the little girl standing in front of him with eyes full of fear. His 2 eyes were still in the state of panic, and his 4 limbs, including his facial expression, could not move at all. Qi Xianxian clapped her small hands and walked to the icebox with small steps. She circled around the icebox once before suddenly covering her eyes with her hands and shrieking, so disgusting." It turned out that Big Black Mole's tears and snot were dripping down from the icebox. At this moment, they had condensed into 3 streaks of ice that hung below his nose and the corners of his eyes. Chapter 1594. Third Steward, This is Bad. Young Master was beaten up on the street, and he's severely injured now. He's dying in an alley next to the main street. What? The third steward's expression changed, and he stood up from his seat. This steward was about 60 years old. He had a short goatee, and he was his only son with a big black mole. He treasured his son very much since he was young, and he raised a crafty playboy. Third steward, quickly send someone to check on young master. He's not doing well now. How dare you? Who dares to do this to my son? Third steward, I don't know what happened either. By the time we rushed over, young master already had such a bitter look on his face. The culprit has already left. Why don't you ask passers-by? There are so many people, but none of them saw who did this to my son? The middle-aged man who was reporting the situation to the third steward smiled bitterly and shook his head. I'm sorry, third steward. I've asked several passers-by, but none of them can tell me what the culprit looks like. They only know that it's a young girl. Ridiculous. There are so many young girls in Onka City. Where do you want me to find one of the culprit? The third steward said angrily, Besides, can a young girl defeat my son's 4 strong men so easily? Do you think that's possible? The middle-aged man pursed his lips non-committally. In fact, it was not impossible. After all, there was always someone better than you. All right, don't say anything else. Quickly take me to see what's going on with young master. When the third steward was led to his son by his subordinates, he realized that his son was in a terrible state. It was not like what his subordinates had reported. He was in a worse state than being on the verge of death. Not only was his face bruised and swollen, but he was also sealed in a solid block of ice. The third steward hurried forward and touched the ice outside. It was a thick block of ice that sealed him inside. It was already good enough that he was not suffocated to death. Through the ice, he could see his son's horrified face, which was covered in tears and snot. Seeing his son like this, he was so angry that he didn't know where to vent. He roared at his son through the ice. Who did this to you? The middle-aged man under the third steward hurriedly stepped forward and said softly, Steward, don't blame him for now. From what I can see, the young master's condition is not good. We have to get him out of the ice as soon as possible. The third steward felt that it was very strange. He had said so much, but his son had not said a word. Why isn't he talking? The third steward asked. This. The middle-aged man stammered. Young master seems to have been planted with a body-securing talisman and was frozen in ice by someone. Moreover, I heard that everyone says that the female talisman master is very powerful. She threw a dozen attack to attack young master. All of them penetrated the layer of ice and directly hit young master's body, but the ice didn't break. It can be seen that her control over the water spirit is very strong. He's a great spirit master. The third manager's expression was extremely unsightly. If she was a great spirit master, with his cultivation, perhaps he would never have the opportunity to take revenge on her in this lifetime. Chapter 1595. Find her. Dig 3 feet into the ground and find this female talisman master. What should we do, young master? Send someone to invite Master Yen over immediately, the third steward said. The middle-aged man hurriedly left to carry out the order. Master Yen was the most famous talisman master in the city. He would definitely be able to remove the immobilization talisman on young master. Just as the third steward and his men were scrambling to find Master Yen for help, Aber and Qi Xianxian had already found a quiet and comfortable inn and settled down. Jojo, how long can that immobilization talisman immobilize Big Mole? Qi Xianxian asked in confusion. It can immobilize him for at least 2 hours. However, I added 10 immobilization talismans on that guy. Aber said indifferently. As soon as he said that, Qi Xianxian opened her mouth slightly and burst into laughter. Big Mole was really unlucky. He could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke Jojo. According to my calculations, he'll probably be immobilized until tomorrow morning. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh again. That loafer was going to be immobilized until tomorrow morning. This was too funny. It was a pity that she couldn't continue to observe Big Mole's pitiful expression. Let's rest early. We've been busy the whole day. Most importantly, they had spent a long time looking for the way. The two of them had no sense of direction and almost couldn't find where Anka City was. Of course, they couldn't tell others about this. If they did, they would be laughing their heads off. Alright, we'll go shopping tomorrow. By then, it'll be the day of the entrance examination in 2 days. Let's go to the mission announcement area tomorrow. There might be an announcement about the examination. Chow Mu nodded in response and then went to rest. The next day, the two of them slept until the sun was high up in the sky. After eating something, they left the inn and walked towards the center of the city. The mission announcement area is usually at the center of the city. I wonder if Shuntian Prefecture will be different from ours, Qi Xianxian muttered. Why don't we go and accept a mission or something? I'll accept a small mission and complete it as soon as possible. Then, I'll be able to earn some money. Rather than accepting a mission, I might as well sell a talisman. It's more valuable. Aber said indifferently. Qi Xianxian was immediately dealt a blow. Heavens, you're such a tycoon. Can you shut up and stop talking? Hey, there's a talisman shop here. Do you want to go in and take a look? Well, there's no need. He didn't want to sell talismans now anyway. Just as the two of them were about to pass by the talisman shop, a man and a woman walked out of the door and met each other. The man was about 20 years old and had delicate features. The woman was about 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing a peacock blue dress and a necklace around her neck. She looked a little arrogant. The two of them looked to be about the same age. When the woman walked out with the man's arm, she glanced at Aber and Qi Xianxian from the corner of her eyes. When they met, the man nodded politely at Xiao Mu and her companion. The woman frowned and asked, "Senior brother, do you know them?" The man called senior brother by the woman was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said, "Oh, I don't know them." The girl pursed her small mouth, and her gaze circled Xiao Mu's face again. In the end, she pulled her senior brother out of the talisman shop. Qi Xianxian turned to look at the two of them. She pouted and whispered to Aber. Chapter 1596. Although the two of them look similar in age, they don't look compatible at all. The man looks gentle and refined with a good temper. The woman, on the other hand, is irritable and arrogant. Who knows who she's trying to impress? Arba sneered and turned to look at Qi Xianxian. We don't know each other anyway, so why bother? Qi Xianxian nodded. The two of them walked around the city center and saw the announcement. 2 days later, the Sunlight Academy will conduct the first round of student selection in Anka City. If you're interested, you can go to the registration area in the city center to register and take the test. Seeing how detailed it was, Qi Xianxian silently read the announcement twice to memorize it. All right, I've memorized it. She reached out to grab Arba and the two of them walked back. If there's nothing else, why don't we go into closed-door cultivation for the next 2 days? Anyway, there's nothing much to see in Anka City all day long. It's probably just a little bigger than Julu City. That's good too. Xiao Mu nodded in agreement. However, the two of them didn't know that their closed-door cultivation for the past 2 days had made the people outside very anxious. The third steward's son had been sealed in that ice block for 20 hours. The third steward had invited many capable people and finally managed to melt his son out of the ice block. It was truly a Herculean effort. After finally getting his son out, the third steward realized that his son still couldn't speak, as if he had been poisoned mute. Now, he didn't dare to throw a tantrum and hurriedly sent people to search for that female talisman master. He didn't hesitate to spend a huge sum of money to send everyone in the city to find Arba, just so that Arba could cure his son's poison. However, Arba was completely unaware of all this. When she and Qi Xianxian came out of closed-door cultivation, the Sunlight Academy's registration was already in full swing. The two of them tidied up and ate something before rushing to the Sunlight Academy's registration area. Looking from afar, the center of the city was filled with people. The two of them looked at each other. Qi Xianxian laughed foolishly. As expected of the Sunlight Academy, the registration area is really packed. With so many people signing up, we will probably have to wait for a long time. There were 4 assessment tables set up at the registration point. The two of them were at the end of the third line. Looking at the line moving at the speed of a turtle, Arba couldn't help but look around. After looking around for a long time, Arba couldn't help but feel a little discouraged when he didn't see Situ E and the others. Where did senior brother Situ and the others go? Could it be that they had some kind of fortuitous encounter as soon as they entered Shuntian Prefecture? Jojo, don't think too much. Since we're already here, let's just take things as they come. Anyway, we don't know where to go. Why don't we go to the Sunlight Academy and train there for half a year? We can improve our cultivation by leaps and bounds. What do you think? Of course, it's up to fate to increase one's cultivation. Hey, Jojo! Look over there, another table has been moved out. Is it because there are too many people, so they added a test table at the last minute? Very likely. Arba nodded. Then let's hurry over. Qi Xianxian was quick to react. She grabbed Arba and jumped towards the 5th table that had just been moved out. Coincidentally, the two of them occupied the first position at the front of the table. It's the two of you? An arrogant voice suddenly sounded in their ears. Arba looked up. It was the man and woman she met at the entrance of the talisman shop 2 days ago. Chapter 1597. We are Year 7 seniors from the Sunlight Academy. Because there are more people signing up this year, we added an additional assessment table. But you are so young, are you sure you can pass the assessment? The girl was wearing a peacock blue dress. Her chin was slightly raised, and she had an arrogant attitude. Arba frowned, and Qi Xianxian muttered softly, "Do you really think you're a peacock just because you're wearing peacock blue clothes?" The girl's expression changed slightly, and she said angrily, "What did you say?" Qi Xianxian pouted and shrugged, and said to the girl, "Instead of talking so much nonsense, you could have given us the assessment long ago. Whether we can succeed or not, we will only know after we take the assessment." The girl laughed coldly. "Can't you see that there are so many people queuing behind? If you know you won't succeed and still insist on queuing, wouldn't you be causing trouble for the people behind you?" Qi Xianxian was furious. "How do you know we won't succeed? How difficult is your assessment? If you don't tell us, how will we know? The woman chuckled and said coldly, Our assessment is based on many aspects. Not only does it test one's willpower, it also tests one's resistance to external temptations. This represents how far one can go on the path of cultivation. Stop fooling around here at such a young age. Hurry up and leave. The girl said impatiently. Qi Xianxian couldn't believe her ears, and argued, You're too self-opinionated. If we don't pass, how do you know we're wasting our time? Maybe you're the one wasting our time? The man at the side frowned and said to the girl, Junior sister, don't be so self-opinionated. Let them try. When Qi Xianxian heard this, she couldn't help but glance at the woman. She snorted and said, Hey, your senior brother's words are fair. What about you? You're obstructing us for no reason. Don't tell me you're afraid that our results will be better than yours, so you're trying to make your presence known? You. The girl stared at the two of them angrily, and her lips curled into a cold smile. She looked at the long queue behind and said, What do you think? Do you agree to let these two guys waste their time? Junior sister. The man frowned slightly and glanced at the peacock blue woman disapprovingly. The peacock blue woman, He Wei, curled her lips in a disapproving manner. She smiled at the man and said, Senior brother, I'm just thinking about the people behind us. There are so many people lining up there right now, we have to make the best use of our limited time. You also know that every test takes a certain amount of time. If these two people's minds aren't firm enough, they might get lost in our testing environment. The people behind could only watch helplessly. At the very least, they would have to wait for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. If all of them are like them, who knows how long it will take to complete this test? What kind of test is this? You make it sound so awesome. Test it for us. Do you want to see us get lost? Qi Xianxian glanced at the woman with disdain. The test hadn't even been done yet, so where did all this nonsense come from? Arbor did not say a word. He glanced at the peacock blue woman, He Wei. Arbor never liked to talk too much about things that could be crushed with strength. Junior sister He Wei, don't mess around. Chapter 1598. Su Liang, who was addressed as senior brother by the peacock blue girl, narrowed his eyes and glared warningly at the peacock blue girl. The latter suddenly stood up and walked briskly to the side of the crowd. A short while later, she walked over with a smile while holding the arm of a gorgeous girl in a pink dress whose hair was covered in pearls and emeralds. Through the crowd, He Wei whispered into the gorgeous girl's ear. The girl in pink looked at Arbor and Qi Xianxian with an unfriendly gaze. Qiao Mu and Qi Xianxian met each other's eyes in confusion. The girl in pink walked up and stared at the two of them. I'm Yu Xin, the daughter of Sunlight Academy's principal. How old are you two this year? Are you qualified to sign up? Our Sunlight Academy can't sign up more than 20 years old. You must be a level 13 Mystic Cultivator or above. The strength I'm talking about refers to actual combat strength. I'm not saying that you can smoothly pass this test just by using medicine to boost your cultivation to a level 13 Mystic Cultivator. Because your opponent might be a level 14 or level 15 Mystic Cultivator or even an early-stage Spiritual Cultivator. Are you sure you have a way to win in our Academy's simulated environment? I don't mind telling you one thing. The injuries and deaths you suffer in the testing environment are all real, so you have to consider carefully. I don't think you can bear the consequences of losing. The daughter of Sunlight Academy's principal, Yu Xin, crossed her arms and raised her chin slightly as she spoke coldly to the two girls in front of her. Arbor glanced at her indifferently. Liar. Yu Xion's expression instantly turned ugly. Being called a liar to her face? This feeling made the usually proud Yu Xion very uncomfortable, especially the other party's stoic face. It was cold and expressionless, but it was strangely cold and beautiful. She was young, and her face still had some childishness. If she grew up another 2 years, which girl would dare to stand beside her? Qi Xianxian immediately nodded in agreement and said, I saw that some of the people lining up were only level 11 and level 12 mystic cultivators. Were they injured or dead? If the testing environment is as you said, either death or injury, do you think those people are idiots? All of them came here to sign up for death? Are you tired of living? I really don't know if this young miss is stupid or if she thinks everyone else is stupid. Her IQ is really frightening. Uxin glared at Qi Xianxian angrily. This feeling of being slapped in the face made her feel very uncomfortable, but she had no way to refute it. Damn it! Looking at these two young girls, he thought that they were inexperienced. He didn't expect them to be so hard to fool. If she really let them pass the test smoothly, she would have to see this damned stoic face every day. Wouldn't her heart feel as uncomfortable as if she had eaten a fly? Senior Sister Uxin, forget it. He Wei sneered. Since there are people who aren't afraid of death, let's let them try this test environment. He Wei smiled contemptuously at the two girls. In any case, whether they die or get injured, it's their own responsibility. Since they don't believe me, then let them suffer in the testing environment. After saying that, he gave Uxin a look, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Uxin immediately understood and nodded at He Wei. Since the two little girls were determined to die, she naturally couldn't stop them. Chapter 1599. One must know that the degree of danger in this kind of mimicry environment was also divided into low, medium, and high. Everything was within her control. These two wretched lasses, they had just arrived and yet they dashed around like little calves. It was time to teach them a lesson. Aba's eyes flashed as she glanced at Uxin indifferently. She thought to herself, this woman is obviously scheming something, don't think that I don't know. Just now that woman's eyes were flickering, it was obvious that there was something strange about her. It was just that in the face of overwhelming strength, any means of evil and monsters would become nothing but fleeting clouds. Uxin took out an exquisite red little box. She opened the box and took out a ring inlaid with a bright yellow-colored gem and wore it on her finger. She glanced at Aba proudly. If you want to back out now, it's still not too late. After saying that, her disdainful gaze sized up Aba and Qi Xianxian. Two ordinary young ladies who didn't even have the slightest bit of profound energy actually wanted to bluff their way through and sneak into their Sunlight Academy to study? What kind of joke was this? It was simply wishful thinking. I'll test first. Aba threw her this sentence coldly. Wait. Senior brother Su Liang couldn't help but stand up as he looked at Uxin and He Wei with an expression of disapproval. These two obviously wanted to make things difficult for these two young ladies in front of them. Actually, during the first entrance test, they only needed to touch the spirit testing stone once. Only those who were tested by the spirit testing stone and their cultivation had reached level 14 would be given preferential treatment and be sent into the mimicry environment for further testing. But now, these two young ladies obviously didn't have the slightest bit of profound energy fluctuation. Uxin and He Wei's actions were obviously targeting the two of them, and senior brother Su Liang couldn't stand it anymore. In my opinion, let's use the spirit testing stone first to test their cultivation level before deciding whether to send them into the mimicry environment. Hearing senior brother Su Liang's pleading, Uxin and He Wei hated Aba and Qi Xianxian even more. In Uxin's eyes, Aba had almost upgraded to a vixen. She cursed in her heart. She's so young, yet she knows how to seduce men and make them speak up for her. How shameless. Of course, Aba didn't know what the two women were thinking. She just looked curiously at the ring on Uxin's hand. This ring should also be a spirit tool. Its greatest function was to mimic the environment. Normally, it relied on absorbing the spirit chi of heaven and earth to support this little spirit tool. After you enter the simulated environment, you will encounter all kinds of beasts, Uxin said in a condescending tone. Your goal is to defeat at least 5 beasts. Only then can you come out. Or, if you can persist in this simulated environment for 2 hours, you will pass the test. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked when they heard this. Persist for 2 hours? He didn't know how many beasts there were inside. If the beasts attacked together, not to mention 2 hours, they might not even last for half an incense stick's worth of time. Arbor looked at Yu Xian disapprovingly. She didn't think highly of this woman now. After saying so much, she purposely hid all the things that one had to pay attention to in the simulated environment. Was she trying to make her passively take a beating after entering the simulated environment and be caught off guard? From the looks of it, that senior brother Su Liang's character was still slightly better. Chapter 1600. It was a pity that as a man, he did not have the nerve to argue with his 2 junior sisters. Yu Xian turned the ring, and everyone saw a light screen appear in front of them. The red light screen was very dazzling, and the people standing in the front row could not help but close their eyes. When they opened them again, they saw a closed transparent shield in front of the table. Yu Xian stood in front of the transparent shield and looked at Arbor proudly. She laughed coldly and said, "How is it? Do you still want to go in?" Arbor ignored her and turned to look at Qi Xianxian. He nodded at her to tell her not to worry, then he turned around and entered the transparent shield. The moment he walked in, he felt that the scene in front of him was somewhat familiar. With a rumble, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Arbor felt that the plane in front of him was very, very familiar. Wait, wasn't this the thunderous plane from before? She did not expect that this simulated environment could replay the scenes that she had experienced before and simulate the entire thunderous plane. This was really amazing. Arbor ran wildly on the thunderous plane, and his sharp eyes dodged the bolts of lightning that fell from the sky. Outside the transparent shield, everyone could see a slender figure moving back and forth continuously. Her speed was extremely fast. Although she was covered by a transparent shield and her movement space was very small, her movement speed was not something that everyone could see clearly. She had basically turned into an afterimage, moving up and down inside the shield. Fast. So fast that it was almost impossible to see her figure. So fast. Senior brother Su Liang could not help but exclaim. Yu Xian and He Wei were also stunned. The 2 of them looked uneasy, their faces alternating between green and white. He Wei moved to Yu Xian's side and asked softly, "Senior sister Yu Xian, did you activate the highest level of the simulated environment?" Yu Xian said angrily, "Do you think I'm stupid? I can't even differentiate between the high and low levels? This is already the highest level of the simulated environment." However, Arbor's ease really made people unhappy. After such a long time, not a single bolt of lightning hit Arbor. At this time, lightning and thunder crisscrossed within the shield, and Arbor was running wildly between lightning and thunder. Her entire body was like a bolt of lightning. Most likely, those below the level of Great Spirit Master would not be able to see through her movements. Only those with strong spiritual sense could see it clearly. Qiao Mu halted her footsteps and looked up at the thunderous plain. She could not stay here any longer. She had to find a way out. Arbor didn't know how long he had been in there, but he was getting impatient. Roar! A furious roar came from the thunderous plains. Qiao Mu reflexively dodged, and then she focused her eyes again. Damn it, it was a mammoth, about 10 times her height. This was probably just a mammoth formed by spiritual energy in a simulated environment. Therefore, although it looked huge, it might not be very powerful. With a light tap of her foot, Qiao Mu had already dashed towards the mammoth. Midway, a miniature wooden club appeared in his small hand. In the blink of an eye, the wooden club became twice the size of a household club. Everyone's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets as they watched from outside. Arbor carried the wooden club on her shoulder and landed on the mammoth's trunk with a whoosh. Without another word, she smashed the club down on the mammoth's trunk. Senior brother Su Liang was slightly shocked. Chapter 1601. The little girl's move looked extremely vicious. Senior brother Su Liang could not help but be stunned. The little girl's methods were not easy to deal with. Junior sisters Yu Xian and He Wei were making things difficult for her. Could there be any good outcome? On the other side, the mammoth's nose was hit hard by the club. As if it had a real body, it let out a miserable howl. The little girl stepped on its head and flipped in the air. With an instant flash, she had already moved to the side. She held the club tightly with both hands and stepped on the air. She was slightly suspended in midair, and her eyes emitted waves of cold light. Suddenly, it swooped down and launched another attack like a mammoth. The huge vibration spread in everyone's ears as if it was substantial. But in fact, the battle between Arbor and the mammoth, which was sealed by the shield, would not fall into anyone's ears at all. However, for some reason, everyone seemed to have heard that earth-shattering sound with their own ears. But they felt that the sharp screeches were still echoing in their ears. The air around them instantly quieted down. Everyone watched dumbfounded as the mammoth scattered like ashes and turned into a cloud of spirit fog, slowly disappearing in front of Arbor. This visual conflict was very huge. One move, it was just one move. Arbor finished off the entire mammoth. Her feet landed on the ground, and she slowly walked forward. Uxion's words just now echoed in her ears. Uxion meant that as long as she finished off the 5 giant beasts, she could leave this place. Since that was the case, she would go find the beasts and finish them off one by one. Boom! 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 Heavy footsteps, accompanied by the sound of a big hammer dragging on the ground, came towards Arbor. Arbor looked carefully. It turned out that a warrior in huge armor had formed in this spirit fog. This warrior was about 2 meters tall and held a big hammer in his right hand. His hammer was very huge. When he walked just now, it was this hammer that made the sound of dragging on the ground. At this time, the soldier's eyes were focused on Arbor, and there was a ruthless light in his eyes. Arbor looked at him coldly, looking at the black armor on his shoulders. That should be a custom-made armor. Although it was only formed from spiritual energy, its defense should be enough to withstand all attacks from Mystic Cultivators level 15 and below. The club, Jean, in Xiao Mu's hand grew longer again. She stomped on the ground fiercely and shot towards the soldiers like an arrow. In the face of a battle, she never thought of running away. Fight. Fight to the end. This was her usual style of doing things. Everyone inside the shield was stunned. Senior brother Su Liang silently glanced at the dean's daughter. Junior sister Uxion was really too reckless. She actually activated the highest state of the simulated environment, and even a rank 5 spirit master would appear. And the little girl in front of him. Although the little girl in front of him did not have the slightest bit of profound energy fluctuation, senior brother Su Liang would no longer view her as an ordinary little girl without any cultivation. Reality proved that this little girl's cultivation was extremely high. She probably used some kind of magic treasure to conceal her aura. She was a girl who kept a low profile. Arbor swung the huge club in his hand and smashed it at the soldier's head. Chapter 1602. The soldier swung his heavy iron hammer to block. With a loud clang, the club and iron hammer collided, producing a heavy sound of friction. Arbor's figure didn't move at all, but that soldier's body swayed. This caused Uxion and He Wei, who were outside the barrier, to be stunned. How was this possible? The soldier in front of them was already a level 15 mystic cultivator, but he still wasn't Arbor's match? What exactly was so strange about this girl, Arbor? Why didn't she have any mystic energy fluctuations? Arbor naturally didn't know what the two girls were thinking. She was currently engaged in a hearty battle with the soldier. She moved and dodged as if she was teasing a kitten or a puppy, toying with the soldier. After several dozen moves, Arbor felt that she had fought enough. It was time to make this soldier formed from spirit energy disappear. The club in her hand emitted a golden light, and mystic energy converged into a straight line that pounced at the soldier's head. The sharp blade drawn from mystic energy shot straight into the soldier's mind, instantly disintegrating him. The armor on the soldier's body also completely melted, turning into wisps of spirit energy that blended into the surrounding environment. After finishing off the second soldier formed from spirit energy, Arbor started to gain experience and knew how to find opponents to fight next. As long as she completed 5 battles, she would be transported out, so she had to end the battle quickly. The people outside the shield watched with numb expressions. When the little girl was fighting with the Iron Hammer soldier earlier, her attitude was slightly more serious. But now that she was fighting with a level 1 spirit beast, the little girl was no longer serious at all. She finished off a spirit beast in 2 moves. Then, she went to find a 4th spirit beast. This time, the 4th spirit beast had already reached level 3, but it still couldn't last 3 moves in Auber's hands before turning into spirit energy and dissipating in the simulated environment. Everyone was no longer shocked. Instead, they looked numbly at the little girl inside the barrier as she wandered around and continued to choose her 5th opponent. This time, another person appeared in front of him. Moreover, it was an opponent who could control the water spirit. The other party's water spirit had already begun to take shape. Xiao Mu looked at the strand of water spirit energy shuttling back and forth between his fingers and creased her brows. She raised a small hand, and 5 streams of water weaved between her fingers like spirit snakes. Auber coldly looked at the water spiritualist, a trace of seriousness appearing in his eyes. Senior brother Su Liang and the others all noticed that the little girl seemed to only reveal a trace of seriousness when she was fighting with others. A long sword materialized in the other party's water spiritual teacher's hand, and he pounced at Xiao Mu without any explanation. Auber sneered. With a flip of her right hand, a black ferrule fell into her palm. The golden club in his hand was withdrawn, and a line of fire shot out from the ferrule, directly into the hands of the opposing water spiritualist. After a light chi sound, a trace of fire on the ferrule was extinguished by the opponent's water spirit energy. Auber blinked and looked at the water spirit sword in the opponent's hand. With a swipe of her small hand, a water spirit sword appeared. The ferrule in his left hand and the sword in his right hand pierced through the water spiritualist's opponent. A faint light burst out from the water spiritualist's body. He originally wanted to quickly retreat and dodge, but he didn't expect the little girl to be someone who didn't play by the rules. Chapter 1603. Look at her left and right hands, they're both weapons, right? Actually, they're just a cover. If you think she'll use her left and right hands to attack you, then you'll be tricked right in front of you. Auber summoned a startled swan dagger from his conscious at the last moment. The two were telepathic, and the startled swan dagger shot toward the water spirit master with a whoosh at lightning speed, instantly slicing open that person's throat. Thus, the water spirit master formed by spiritual energy turned into a faint wisp of smoke and dissipated in front of Auber. A light flashed, and the little stoic came out of the barrier with a cold expression, standing expressionlessly in front of everyone. Uxin and He Wei looked at each other in dismay. No matter how unwilling they had to admit that this little stoic directly passed the second test and became a student of Sunlight Academy. Congratulations, little miss. Su Liang appeared very happy, and he stood up and nodded at Auber. You're now a member of our Sunlight Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong light exploded from the little miss's body, connecting heaven and earth, drawing in spiritual energy from all directions. That scrambling speed made it seem like the spiritual energy had 5 senses, as if they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to find her if they were half a beat slower. What? Uxin and He Wei stood there dumbfounded as they watched the scene before them. This is advancement? Miss Chao advanced. Miss Chao really advanced. This time, she truly advanced through battle with the assistance of the Xuanji core. A level 15 entry-level mystic cultivator could communicate with heaven and earth and draw in spiritual energy into the body. This little fellow was already a quasi-spiritual cultivator. On the side, Qi Xuanxuan's jaw had already dropped to the ground from shock. She reached out a small hand and hastily propped up her chin. Qi Xianxian blinked and suddenly jumped to Auber's side. She hooked her arm and exclaimed crisply, "Heavens, Jojo, you actually advanced after fighting a few battles." As expected, Shuntian Prefecture is rich in energy and can help with advancement. Yes. Auber's mind was no longer here, but he was shocked by the sudden opening of the inner world in front of him. When she glanced over, she found that her inner world, which was originally 180 cubic meters, had increased by quite a bit. Now, it was probably 500 cubic meters. Some of the mist-shrouded areas in his inner world were revealed, revealing even more: gold, silver, and jewelry. Oh my God! Did she rob the palace's treasury in her dreams? Arber's eyes were fixed on the boxes of gold bars. He closed his eyes and opened them again. There were rows of 3-story-tall stone statues in the inner world. Looking at them now, there were definitely more than 800 pairs. There should be at least 3,000 statues. Could it be that there was actually gold hidden inside these stone statues? Arber couldn't help but suspect that he might be a legendary treasure thief. Perhaps she had buried all kinds of gold, silver, and jewels in the stone statues? Otherwise, why would she place so many stone statues that could only be looked at but not eaten in her inner world? Don't you think it takes up a lot of space? Although the inner world was already 500 cubic meters, more than half of the space was almost filled by these stone statues. The outline of the snake statue behind the stone statue was gradually becoming clearer. It looked like it was roaring at the sky, and there were 2 small bulges on its head. Although it looked like a snake, the more he looked at it, the weirder it felt. Chapter 1604. Jojo. Qi Xianxian saw that she was in a daze and couldn't help but tug at her gently. Arber withdrew her spiritual awareness from her inner world and watched as the door to her inner world closed. Only then did she regain her senses. She turned to look at Qi Xianxian and nodded slightly. "I'm fine." However, with her current situation, she still needed a relatively quiet environment to advance. It wasn't suitable for her to stay here any longer. Seeing that Arber was about to turn and leave, Su Liang hurriedly ran forward and cupped his hands towards Arber. "Junior sister, you have passed our Sunlight Academy's assessment. Please come over here to register." Arber glanced coldly at the person who spoke and shook her head. "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry to go back and prepare for my advancement. I don't have time to register." Senior brother Su hurriedly stopped her and smiled. "Oh, it's fine, it's fine. Junior sister, you only need to leave your name with me. We'll help you get an academy card. It won't take long, just a few minutes." Arber glanced at him indifferently and her lips curled into a mocking smile. "Perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough. I won't join your academy." With that, she started to walk away. On the side, Qi Xianxian also harumphed coldly and followed after Qiao Mu without another word. "Wait." Senior brother Su Liang was startled, and even his voice became louder. "Young friend, please wait." A slightly old voice came from outside the crowd. In the blink of an eye, an elderly man with white hair and a white beard rushed over at lightning speed. He carefully examined Qiao Mu before nodding slightly and saying, "This young friend, you were a student from our academy just now and didn't know your limits. Sorry for offending you." "Master." Su Liang hurriedly stood up and bowed towards the old man. Su Liang saw that the situation wasn't good and guessed that he wouldn't be able to keep Arber. He hurriedly sent a message to his master so that the old man could rush over. "Elder Su." All the disciples bowed towards the old man. This Elder Su was the honorary dean of Sunlight Academy and was an outstanding pill refiner. Thus, even Lord Dean himself had a very respectful attitude toward that old man. As Dean Yu's daughter, Yu Xian was well aware of this. She didn't dare to offend the old man. Seeing Elder Su appear, Yu Xian and He Wei knew that the situation was not good. Sure enough, Elder Su turned his head and glared at Yu Xian and He Wei. Then he turned to Arber and smiled kindly. "Little girl, as long as you join our Sunlight Academy, this old man can make the decision to waive your tuition for 3 years. Also, this old man can vouch for you and recommend you to participate in the 6 Prefectures Academy's Powerhouse Ranking Competition in November this year." Wow! Everyone was listening attentively. After hearing the elder's promise, they all exclaimed. Elder Su actually vouched for a new student, promising to send her to the 6 Prefectures School Tournament in November this year? One had to know that the 6 Prefectures Academy Tournament was held once every 3 years. It was a tournament between all the academies in the 6 Prefectures continent. Everyone in the 6 prefectures was watching this grand occasion. It also involved the allocation of resources on Brinset Island for the next 3 years. Brinset Island was a place that the 6 prefectures would fight over. The island was as big as half of Shuntian Prefecture. There were rich mineral and medicinal resources on the island. Chapter 1605. It was even one of the rare spirit lands in the 6 prefectures continent. There were a total of 3 spirit lands that had been excavated on Brinset Island. They were currently owned by the schools that ranked first in the Academy League 3 years ago. They were Sunlight Academy of Shuntian Prefecture, Auspicious Academy of Ani Prefecture, and Heaven Bestowing Academy of Poland Prefecture. One could imagine how important the Triennial Academy League was to the entire 6 prefectures continent, and how important it was to every student. And now, Elder Sue was actually sponsoring a new student to participate in it? Why did Elder Sue trust this new girl so much? This showed that he was very confident in the girl's strength. Uxian's lips moved. Elder. Shut up. Elder Sue glanced coldly at Uxian again. This Uxian, relying on the fact that she was the daughter of Sunlight Academy's headmaster Yu, was getting more and more unreliable. She actually didn't want to accept such a talent into Sunlight Academy, but kept pushing her away? The selfishness involved in this went without saying. Everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. Although they believed in Elder Sue's eyes, it was obvious that the girl was really young. Although her cultivation was about to break through to the spirit realm, there were plenty of spirit realm experts in the Academy League. The little girl had the advantage of her age. Among this group of people with mediocre aptitudes, she naturally appeared to be talented and intelligent. Her talent was even more prominent. But the 6 Prefectures Academy League in November was a competition between spirit realm experts. The average age of the participants was around 20 years old, and the participants were all seniors of at least 5 years. The girl might not be able to stand out among these seniors with great talent and rich battle experience. Moreover, others wouldn't show mercy to you just because you were young, okay? This involved the interests of the various schools, so naturally they would fight with their lives on the line. The 2 girls who had just arrived at Shuntian Prefecture had never heard of the Academy League. The 2 newbies looked at each other, and then turned to look at Elder Sue. Sorry, I've already decided, Abba said indifferently. Elder Sue couldn't help but feel anxious. Little girl, you might not know what it means to participate in the Academy League. Every student who participates in the Academy League will have the right to cultivate in a spirit realm on Brinset Island for 15 days. If you can get into the top 100 in the league ranking competition, you will be rewarded handsomely. Of course, the higher your ranking, the more valuable the reward. You can consider it. Just the right to cultivate in Spirit Realm for 15 days was enough to drive everyone crazy. Even if you were only a substitute for the school tournament, when you set foot on Brinset Island, it meant that you had obtained the right to cultivate in the spirit domain for 15 days. This was really tempting. Many people looked at Arbor enviously. It was said that the experience of cultivating in Spirit Realm was completely different from normal cultivation. For those who had just entered Spirit Realm, after 10 days of cultivation, their cultivation would increase by a small step. Normally, this small step would take at least half a year for a cultivator of the Spirit Realm to complete. Little girl, what are you hesitating for? Quickly agree to Elder Sue's request. Several disciples from the Sunlight Academy hurriedly said. To be able to obtain the qualifications to participate in the tournament as soon as he entered the academy, where else could he find such a wonderful thing? Chapter 1606. Moreover, Elder Sue had promised to waive her 3 years of tuition fees. If it were anyone else present, they would have agreed to it 800 years ago. However, Arbor was unwilling. Her disdainful gaze shifted between Uxian and He Wei as she said bluntly, "Your academy's environment is too bad. I don't want to meet retards the moment I leave the academy." Qi Xianxian suppressed her laughter and nodded seriously. "That's right. We don't want to be chased and bitten by a mad dog every day." "Who are you calling a mad dog?" Yu-Xian's expression instantly darkened. Her eyes were filled with anger, and her expression looked like she wanted to eat Qi Xianxian. Qi Xianxian made a face at her and giggled. Whoever responds will be the one. Yu-Xian was unable to restrain her anger. Shut up. Elder Su glared at Yu-Xian, who suddenly jumped out to interrupt them, and his eyes were filled with displeasure. Yu-Xian, I will truthfully report your actions today to Dean Yu. Yu-Xian couldn't help but panic when she heard that. She hurriedly said, Elder Su, let me explain. Elder Su snorted coldly. No need. No need to explain. This old man knows exactly what you're thinking. However, Auber wasn't in the mood to continue watching the Sunlight Academy's elder and Yu-Xian quarrel. She turned and left with Qi Xianxian. When Elder Su saw this, his intestines turned green with regret. He regretted coming too late and not stopping Yu-Xian from making things difficult for Auber at the first moment. However, it was too late for regrets now. Elder Su sighed. The Academy missed out on such a young prodigy today. It's hard to say whether it will be good or bad if we meet again in the future. If such a young prodigy goes to the other 5 prefectures' academies, then it's hard to say whether our Shuntian Prefecture's Sunlight Academy can successfully obtain first place in this November school league. Yu-Xian glanced at Elder Su in amusement. Elder, aren't you overestimating this little girl? Although she is very powerful, but she is also very strong. Although she is very powerful, she might not be a match for the other 5 prefectures. After all, she is merely a mystic cultivator who hasn't even reached rank 15. And in the school league, rank 5 and rank 6 spirit masters are practically everywhere. Short-sighted. Elder Su angrily rebuked and coldly swept a glance at Yu-Xian. How can a person's actual combat ability be judged purely by their cultivation? It's not like you didn't see how the little girl performed in the highest level of simulation just now. She's a level 15 mystic cultivator who hasn't even reached level 15 yet. Do you think it'll be very difficult for her to deal with a level 3 spirit beast? Seeing Elder Su's hair standing on end, it seemed like he was truly enraged. Yu-Xian couldn't help but shudder. She was really surprised. Elder Su and Auber had only met for the first time. Why did he have so much confidence in her? Just because the girl's performance in the simulated environment was somewhat unexpected? However, this shouldn't be a big deal. After all, in a simulated environment, the opponents formed by spirit energy were all illusory. Compared to a level 3 or level 5 spirit master who fought with a real body, their actual combat strength was completely different. Moreover, she was just a weak girl who had just come up from the lower star field. Could she really change the structure of the 6 prefectures school league? She didn't believe it. Even if she was beaten to death, she wouldn't believe that such a thing would happen. How could it possibly happen? Looking at Elder Su's departing figure, Yu-Xian couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache. Chapter 1607. The most important thing now was to think of a good reason and excuse to explain to his father. Elder Su was a difficult person to communicate with. If he had made up his mind to report to his father, he would definitely do as he said. He Wei walked up from the side and snorted. It's just passing the second test. What's so great about that? When we entered the academy, didn't we all pass the second test too? Elder Su, I think you're overestimating her cultivation base. Yu-Xian glanced at her indifferently. She thought about how this woman had whispered into her ear and added fuel to the fire. That was why she couldn't hold back her anger. She felt that she was being used by this woman. He Wei said that Auber's little girl was favored by Senior Su. Naturally, she was very angry. If it were not for this woman sowing discord, perhaps she simply would not have paid attention to an insignificant character from the lower star domain like Qiao Mu. Naturally, she wouldn't offend Elder Su. Now that she saw Elder Su's disgust towards her, Yu-Xian couldn't help but worry. After all, Elder Su was someone who had a lot of face in front of her father. Furthermore, the pills he made were also very good. Thinking of this, Uxin quickened her steps. She wanted to find her father to discuss how she could redeem Elder Su's friendliness towards her. On the other hand, Aber and Qi Xianxian returned to the small inn. They left early in the morning and only came back now. However, to the two of them, it was purely a waste of time. They arrived at the Sunlight Academy for half a day and didn't even register. Instead, they were nagged by a woman. Thinking of this, Qi Xianxian felt uncomfortable all over. Aber tugged at Qi Xianxian and said, "I'll leave for a while. You rest first." Then, he threw her a small bag of spirit coins. "Don't worry about saving money for me. Go buy whatever you want to eat. Don't treat yourself too badly." After saying this, she had already disappeared from the room. Qi Xianxian paced around the room curiously, only to discover that Xiao Mu really had disappeared without a trace. Even her aura had completely disappeared from the world. Qi Xianxian wasn't too nervous. Since Aber had already informed her in advance that he would be leaving for a while, then he should be looking for a relatively secluded and quiet place to cultivate and advance. However, this little Jojo really had a lot of secrets. Could it be that she was carrying a mystic domain-type artifact with her? Qi Xianxian shook her head and didn't probe any further. She took the small spirit pouch that Aber gave her and happily walked downstairs. As soon as Aber entered Paradise Planet, he was enveloped by the profound energy that surged from all directions. He didn't have time to think about it. His entire body had already sunk into a meditative state of calmness and concentration. Profound energy floated around her body, enveloping her layer by layer, forming a huge transparent cocoon. The little water baby rolled to her feet and swayed its watery head from side to side. It turned around and asked Little Tree, who was waving its branches as it ran over, "Qiu, how long is Master going to be in seclusion?" "At least 3 days, at most 5 to 7 days. This time, Master had directly advanced from level 14 advanced stage to level 15 elementary stage. She had skipped a small realm in between, so naturally, her advancement wouldn't be too fast. Chapter 1608. Qi Xianxian waited in the small inn for a full 4 days. On this day, she was eating breakfast listlessly in her room when she suddenly felt the air fluctuate. She immediately turned around and widened her eyes in excitement. Sure enough, she saw a slender figure appear in the torn air in front of her. "Jojo." Qi Xianxian happily skipped over. Just as she was about to reach out to hug her, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. A pair of big round eyes sized her up from head to toe. Qi Xianxian suddenly exclaimed, "Wow! I can feel that the aura you're releasing right now is much stronger than mine. What realm have you advanced to?" "Initial success level, 15 Mystic Cultivator." "Whoa, not only did you cross the threshold of level 15 Great Mystic Cultivator, you even directly skipped the entry realm and entered the initial success realm." Qi Xianxian had a worshipful expression as she carefully sized up Aber. "Jojo, it must have been hard on you these past few days, right? In order to advance, you couldn't eat or sleep well. You must have been hungry for a few days. Come, I just asked someone to send up some hot porridge. Let's eat together." Aber had a "thank you, but I'm not a foodie" expression on his face. He was speechless as Qi Xianxian pulled him to the small table and pressed him down. The two of them each held up a small porcelain bowl. Qi Xianxian ate 2 mouthfuls and couldn't help but ask, "Jojo, where do you think we should go next? Do you want to continue looking for that senior brother Situ of yours?" Aber shook his head. "Let's not. Senior brother and the others should have also encountered their own fateful encounters. With their cultivation, there was no need to be too worried. In any case, there would be a chance to meet them in the future." Aber decided to put aside the matter of looking for Situ E and the others and let nature take its course. "That's good. After careful consideration these past few days, I feel that the two of us should still find an academy to stay in. At the very least, we can study systematically. For example, I might be able to advance to the spirit realm after studying in the academy. For example, you can learn how to better control and use spirit energy in advance. Arbor drank a mouthful of porridge and nodded his small head in agreement. Always floating around Shuntian Prefecture like this was not a good idea. As for people, they still had to find an organization. After thinking about it for 4 days and 4 nights, I've finally come to a decision. I think we should just go to a top academy. PFFF. Arbor spat out a mouthful of hot porridge. In the blink of an eye, Qi Xianxian held a plate in front of her face and completely blocked Jojo's spit. Jojo! Qi Xianxian shouted angrily. What kind of reaction is that? Adhering to the principle of never admitting to doing bad things, Arbor slowly wiped her mouth with a handkerchief and said calmly, "It's okay. Go on." Humph. Qi Xianxian stood up and clasped her hands behind her back as she recounted the benefits of going to a top-notch academy. That day, the tutor from the top-notch academy also said. There were mentors from the 5 spiritual faculties in the academy who specialized in one-on-one tutoring. Let me think, this treatment should be pretty good. Arbor's mouth twitched. That's right, it's the tutoring of outstanding instructors like Zhou Danjin. Qi Xianxian blinked and coughed lightly. I've been wandering around the city these past 2 days because I wanted to find a good academy for the 2 of us to stay in. But I don't know why, ever since I got into trouble with the Sunlight Academy, I've never been able to find a good academy. Whenever I went to the registration area of the other academies and said that I wanted to register, I would be rejected. Chapter 1609. Upon hearing this, Arbor's brows creased slightly. How many academies' registration points did you go to these past few days? At least 7 or 8. Qi Xianxian waved her small hand and puffed out her cheeks as she said angrily, "The teachers at the registration points looked at me like I was the god of plague, and they repeatedly waved their hands to tell me to leave. I didn't even have time to say a word at some of the registration points. They just told me to scram." When she said this, Qi Xianxian pouted like a little toad and stomped her feet in anger. Arbor involuntarily snorted. Of course it's because our portraits have already been distributed to every academy in Shuntian Prefecture, clearly stating that they're targeting us and won't let us enter. Unless we leave Shuntian Prefecture and go to Ani Prefecture or Luotian Prefecture. Otherwise, we might not be able to find a single academy in Shuntian Prefecture that has the guts to take us in. What? Qi Xianxian wasn't stupid and immediately understood after a moment's thought. Those 2D*MNB* cheese from Sunlight Academy are framing us? It should be pretty close. I just don't get it. It's only our first time meeting those 2B* cheese, so why are they targeting us? It's probably because they don't like me, Arbor said aloofly. And you were merely implicated because of me. Sorry. Qi Xianxian immediately punched her shoulder. What are you apologizing for? Good sisters should endure hardships and enjoy blessings together. Arbor's brows relaxed slightly. Qi Xianxian smacked the table in a very domineering manner, causing the empty bowl on the table to jump out. Then it's decided. We'll go to a top-notch academy. I don't believe that a top-notch academy won't take us in. According to Instructor Zhou's words, the top-notch academy seems to be located in the Lava Mountain Range outside Anka City. Pack your things, we're setting off now. Qi Xianxian was full of fighting spirit as soon as she said it. The little stoic couldn't help but be infected by this exuberant girl. She wordlessly followed behind her and symbolically packed her tattered bag. Yes, it was just an indigo-colored ragged bag with 2 sets of old clothes and a few white buns inside. It was just for show. Qi Xianxian angrily put all the pots and pans in the room into a bag. As she tidied up the bag, she said, "Let me tell you, Jojo is a top academy. Who knows, it might be a good choice." Arbor silently followed behind her. He pulled out a crumpled letter from his chest and glanced at it. Could it be that everything was predestined? Forget it. Since it was Murong Sun who wanted her to go to a top-notch academy, then she would give it a try. Master couldn't harm her. Let's go. Qi Xianxian flung the bag over her shoulder and roared with her fist raised. Arbor followed up weakly, Xian, why did you take the inn owner's pots and pans? What about taking them all away? You only had them deliver a pot of porridge, but you actually confiscated their pots and pans before you left. Aren't you a bit too stingy? Xian was startled. She turned her head and chuckled mischievously at her. Let's go. Perhaps Xian was right. A top-notch academy might really be a good choice. However, Arbor didn't know that she freaking regretted it 3 days later. If she had to use 2 words to describe a top-notch academy's characteristics, then it would definitely be cheating. Chapter 16:10. According to the map, the lava mountain range was indeed outside Onka City. However, the 2 idiots with no sense of direction had wandered around the mountain for 2 days and 2 nights, but they still could not find the place. The 2 of them looked at each other in dismay. Could it be that the cheap map you bought was wrong? Arbor looked at Xian helplessly and asked, "How is it cheap? I spent a spirit coin to buy it." Xian mumbled, then turned the map upside down and glanced at it. Wait, this red river can't be the lava mountain range, right? Arbor leaned over to take a look and saw that there was indeed a red river on the opposite side of the mountain. There was also a little red dot behind the river. Yes, it was that little red dot. A little red that you would not notice on the map. This could be the real lava mountain range. Therefore, the 2 of them went in the opposite direction and spent 2 days in an unknown mountain range. Heavens! How can there be such a lousy map? What kind of map is this? Xian was so angry that she almost tore the map apart. Arbor quickly stopped her and coughed lightly. It's our fault for not looking carefully. It's all right. The day after tomorrow is the 28th of July for the entrance exam. We should be just in time. My heavens, the people who sell maps in Shuntian Prefecture are all idiots. The real lava mountain range is marked so small, and a lousy mountain is outlined in black. The next time I see that profiteer selling maps, I'll beat him to death. Xian gritted her teeth as she recalled the appearance of the profiteer. That fellow was wearing a black cloak and a hat. Looking at him now, it was obvious that he was not a good person. F***ck, she actually fell for this kind of person's trick. What a waste of that spirit coin. Arbor was speechless. Hey, the 2 little sisters in front. Please wait, please wait. A panting sound came from behind the 2 of them. Little sisters, I want to ask for directions. The little fatty ran over. He was as round as a ball, and his small eyes were curved like crescent moons. Who are you? Xian looked like she was ready to beat someone up, and stared at little fatty with vigilance. What a joke. The 2 of them had wandered around the mountain for 2 days, but they hadn't seen a single living person. Instead, they had seen 2 or 3 corpse puppets that were dead but not yet dead. They had easily dealt with them. Don't hit. Little fatty hurriedly waved his 2 hands in front of himself and shook his head. I'm a good person. My name is Ko Hongwen. Ko Hongwen. Xian lowered her hand and looked at him suspiciously. What are you doing here? I am a little lost. I want to ask the 2 ladies how to get to the top academy. You also want to go to the elite academy? Xian and Arbor asked in unison. Little fatty was instantly excited. His small eyes blinked as he looked at the 2 of them. He laughed and said, could it be that the 2 ladies are also going to the elite academy? After saying that, he took out a crumpled and yellowed piece of paper from his pocket and spread it out in front of the 2 of them. Look at this map, it's clearly marked with a black and thick line. But no matter where I look, I can't find the elite academy. Isn't it a little strange? The 2 ladies rolled their eyes at the same time. Chapter 16:11. Xian snatched the map from his hand, crumpled it into a ball, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it. Hey, big sister, why did you throw my map away? Little Fatty couldn't help but exclaim. Was the person who sold you the map sneakily wearing a black robe and covering his face? That's right, that's right. Little Fatty wasn't stupid and immediately understood. Could it be that there's something wrong with this map? Look. Qi Xian showed her map to Little Fatty. It's exactly the same. Little Fatty immediately cheered. Heh. Qi Xian pointed at the river drawn by the red line on the map. Do you see it? Do you see that little red dot behind the river? Little Fatty's mouth instantly gaped open. Could it be that this little red dot is Lava Mountain Range? That's right. The two girls nodded at the same time and looked at Little Fatty sympathetically. Little Fatty, you've been tricked too. F***CK. Is the person who sold the map deliberately looking for trouble? Little Fatty shrieked and couldn't help but turn to look at the mountain path they came from. He instantly deflated. Heavens, there's still such a long way to run back. Can we still make it in time for the student exam? Qi Xian waved her hand and released a majestic golden lion. I didn't want to be so ostentatious at first, but time is limited now. Jojo, let's sit on the little lion. Abba's eyes widened when he saw Qi Xian release her mystic beast. He bounced forward and kept stroking the golden lion's head with his small hands. Look, other people's mystic beasts were so mighty and domineering. They looked so beautiful. Qi Xian couldn't help but be startled. Then she smiled and said, Jojo, let's go. Abba nodded, and the two of them flew onto the golden lion's back at the same time. When the little fatty Ko Hongwen saw this, he ran over like a ball and hurriedly called out, Little sisters, give me a ride. Who's your big sister? The stoic face was expressionless as she glared at him coldly. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. Scram. Qi Xian was even more direct. She lightly patted the lion's head. The lion leaped up and carried the two girls down the mountain, running steadily. The little fatty, Ko Hongwen, followed the golden lion down the mountain with tears streaming down his face. He waved his hands and shouted, Little girls, wait for me, miss. The golden-haired lion ran very fast. After going down the mountain, it ran in the direction of Anka City. They were supposed to go straight to the lava mountains from the south gate of Anka City, but because of that lousy map, they went to the north gate. Going in the opposite direction, going in circles in an unknown mountain for such a long time really made people speechless. If they circled around Anka City, they would definitely waste a lot of time. The best way was to pass through Anka City and go straight to the south gate. Ladies, wait for me. Little Fatty began to run wildly. Looking from afar, it was as if he was looking at a giant watermelon that was constantly rolling. The city gate was right in front of them. Abba turned to look at Little Fatty, and a faint trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He couldn't tell that Little Fatty was also someone with remarkable abilities. It took them more than 2 hours to run from the nameless mountain to the north gate of Anka City. They didn't stop for even a moment during this time. Little Fatty was actually able to keep up with the golden lion's speed. He was also an incredible guy. Chapter 1612. Looks like he's a speed ability user. Abba blinked. We're almost at the city gate. Qi Xian looked at the toll checkpoint at the city gate with disgust in her eyes. Jojo, should we get off? No need. Let's charge through, Abba said coldly. Qi Xian froze for a moment before she laughed out loud. Okay. Little Fatty, who had been running behind them, was dumbfounded when he saw that the two vigorous girls had no intention of summoning their mystical beasts even though they were already at Anka City's gate. F***CK, where did these two girls come from? Were they planning to charge into Anka City's checkpoint just like that? At this moment, the crowd in the queue had already discovered in horror that a golden-haired lion twice the size of an adult lion was running towards them. Everyone screamed and dodged to the sides. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked at the two girls on the golden lion's back. Heavens, are they planning to charge into the city just like that? Ladies, you. The golden-haired lion leaped up, its 4 hooves landing heavily on the dusty ground, rolling up a string of sand grains. Wah! Mother, it's a lion. Don't go over there. Be careful not to fall. Who dares to trespass into Anka City? The 2 lines of people moved aside, leaving a path in the middle. The 5 or 6 ruffians who had set up the toll checkpoint at Anka City's gate saw the golden lion and the girls charging into the city. Do you want to die? Do you think you can trespass anywhere? Get off your mounts right now. The ruffians cursed angrily. Mystical beasts are not allowed to be summoned in Anka City without permission. F***CK, put away your mystical beasts. Right now. Ah! The ruffians screamed. The reason was that not only did the golden lion not stop, but it also sped up and rushed towards their checkpoint. The girl sitting on the lion's back laughed. Get out of my way, all of you. Get out if you don't want to die. Roar! The golden-haired lion pounced and stepped heavily on the fence of the checkpoint, crushing the fence into pieces. Bang! A ruffian soldier was directly sent flying by this force and fell to the ground miserably. Ah, you guys! Another ruffian had just pulled out a steel knife from his waist and was about to counterattack. A blue talisman flew towards him and landed on his body with a whoosh. He paused with the knife in his hand and looked at the oncoming golden lion in horror. Roar! Roar, roar! The golden lion roared angrily and kicked the guy away. After a loud rumbling sound, the golden lion shook off the broken fence in front of the city gate. It carried Arbor and Qi Xianxian and rushed into the city gate. The citizens lining up to enter the city were all dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. The 2 little girls had broken into Anka City in broad daylight. The soldiers were all frozen at the city gate by the body-securing talisman, standing there in a pitiful manner. After the 2 little girls rushed into the city, they quickly ran toward a deserted road. The little fatty ran into the city with his short legs and panted heavily. He looked at the soldiers sympathetically and patted one of them on the shoulder. Brother, I'm going in first. Chapter 16:13. The soldiers were immobilized by the body-securing talisman and naturally could not give him any response. The little fatty took large strides and chased in the direction that the golden lion had left. The commoners at the city gate looked at each other and waited for a while. Seeing that there was no other movement, they all ran out from the corners and surrounded the soldiers who were immobilized by the body-securing talisman, sizing them up curiously. These soldiers usually flaunted their prowess at the city gate, and it was rare to see them suffer together. Everyone was secretly laughing in their hearts. After looking at their ugly state, everyone hurriedly rushed into the city. After all, it was rare that they did not have to pay to enter the city. When the guards of the city lord's mansion heard the news and rushed to the north gate, Arbor, Qi Xianxian and the rest had already disappeared. The 2 of them had already charged out of the south gate and similarly used thunderous methods to subdue the guards of the south gate and left without saying a word. Qi Xianxian laughed out loud. Awesome. This is how we should deal with this bunch of people. They are simply shameless. They still dare to ask us for the entrance fee. Once, twice, thrice, they still have the nerve to stretch out their hands and ask for it. Scram! Arbor glanced sideways and did not see the little fatty's round body rolling over. It seemed that he had thrown the little fatty away. The 2 of them exited the south gate and ran in the direction of the Red River marked on the map. Huff, huff, huff. Not long after, the little fatty appeared at the south gate, sweating profusely. He looked at the dozen or so soldiers who were also immobilized and grinned. Sigh, I ran to death. Really? The little fatty exhaled a few times and walked around the soldiers twice as he clicked his tongue. How pitiful, your opponent is actually such a strong great talisman master. From the north gate to the south gate, that crazy little girl had thrown at least 50 body-securing talismans. How could they fight against such a great talisman master? Little fatty sighed and heard footsteps coming from afar. It must be the guards of the city lord's mansion. They were rushing towards the south city gate. This bunch of idiots, who knew where they had gone. The little fatty grinned, then turned around and ran out of the southern city gate. Following the tracks of the golden lion, they soon arrived in front of a red river. It was unknown if this river had been heated up by the temperature of the nearby lava mountains, but the entire river seemed to be boiling. Little Fatty picked up a stone and threw it into the water. With a light chee sound, the stone was swallowed into dregs by the water in a matter of minutes. The little fatty was speechless. He turned his head and looked along the wide river. His eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly ran over and waved vigorously at the two girls standing in front of the river. "Little sisters, it's so good to see you." Abba turned around and saw little Fatty rolling in front of them like a big watermelon. She pursed her lips and expressionlessly summoned the divine bird Ching Luan. When little Fatty saw this, he hurriedly went forward and cupped his hands towards Abba. Little girl, give me a ride. Look, this big bird is so big. I'll just sit on its tail. I won't be rude to the two of you. Where's your own Xian beast?" Qi Xian placed her hands on her hips and sized up the little fatty before she bluntly asked the little fatty. Chapter 16:14. I. The little fatty scratched his head and chuckled. "My mystic beast isn't as powerful as yours. It can't fly or run." "What mystic beast is that?" Qi Xian glanced at him and asked suspiciously, "Let it out for us to see." Okay. The little fatty suddenly stretched out one of his short legs and assumed a horse stance as he muttered, "Come out, my Xian beast." Qi Xian looked at the little fatty and couldn't help but find it funny. Could it be that every time this fellow summoned a mystic beast, he had to mutter for half a day? By the time he finished muttering and assumed a posture to welcome the mystic beast, the other party would have already beaten him to the ground. What kind of mystic beast was this? It was so arrogant and slow. Boom! A dull sound landed on the wetland beside the Red River. Abba and Qi Xian looked and couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Lying in front of them was a huge tortoise the size of a small hill. No wonder the little fatty said that it couldn't run or fly. This tortoise lazily lay beside the Red River, as if it was a tortoise sunbathing and couldn't wait to flip its belly over and bask in the sun. From the moment it came out until now, it didn't even glance at its master. It was extremely arrogant. The little fatty smiled embarrassedly at the two ladies and hurriedly cupped his hands towards Abba. "Young lady, please give me a ride." If there were no flying beasts to cross the Red River, then there was nothing he could do. In any case, this Red River definitely couldn't be crossed by a ferry. Even the sturdy rocks couldn't withstand the Red River for a second, let alone a wooden boat. Wouldn't entering the water be seeking death? Hey, look! Qi Xian squatted down and swept the sand with her small hand. After sweeping away the sand, a stone tablet was revealed half buried in the soil. There were 3 large words written on it. Lava Crossing. Damn, this isn't a red river at all. This is lava. Abba's lips curved. Naturally, there is a lot of lava buried under the lava mountain range. This was naturally not surprising. What was strange was that this lava river should have overflowed from very deep underground. Moreover, it had already formed the scale of a river. Instead, it became a natural barrier for the top academies. "Master, there is a defensive shield above 100 meters. It is very strong and cannot be broken." Ching Luan flapped its wings and jumped to Abba's side. Over 100 meters? In other words, Ching Luan could not fly too high under this defensive barrier. Otherwise, it would not be able to enter the range of the defensive barrier and would still be suppressed. But if he was forced to fly at a low altitude, her gaze was focused on the lava. Suddenly, a piece of raw meat appeared between her fingers and she threw it into the lava. The piece of meat was thrown high into the air before it fell into the lava. In just a few seconds, 17 to 18 1-meter-long sword-toothed red fish jumped out of the lava and bit onto the piece of meat. After competing with each other to tear it apart, the piece of meat was instantly turned into minced meat. Qi Xuan's face turned slightly pale. Looking at the 1-meter-long sword-toothed red fish that jumped out of the lava, she felt that under the sunlight, the fangs of the sword-toothed red fish emitted an eerie cold light. Little Fatty also shuddered. There are actually mutated red fish in the lava? This was too strange. How did the saber-toothed red fish survive in such a scorching lava? Chapter 16:15. Nothing is impossible, Auber said indifferently. Even humans could change according to the environment, let alone animals. Looking at those sword-toothed red fish, the average one was more than a meter long, and a few were even 2 meters long. Not only were their mouths full of fangs, but even their skin was covered in a layer of fiery red substance. It was probably this substance that protected them from being melted into ashes by the boiling lava. These strange fish should be equivalent to an intermediate level 3 zombie. Auber speculated, look at how they can jump 100 meters. The Top Academy deliberately set up a defensive barrier above 100 meters. Forcing the intruder into the attack range of the school of fish, it was truly a natural barrier. Auber glanced at the lava mountain range behind the lava crossing. Before they even got close, they could already feel the heat waves rolling towards them. You've decided? Decided what? To go to such an unreliable academy, Auber said indifferently. If she guessed correctly, the entrance test of the Top Academy was to successfully pass the lava crossing. Looking at the lava crossing, which formed a ring-shaped water vein that surrounded the entire lava mountain range, the test was obvious. Little Fatty nodded vigorously. I heard that the Top Academy can conduct one-on-one guidance and training. It has all 5 spiritual elements. It's very suitable for us to enter and study. Xiao Mu inwardly rolled her eyes before coldly saying, it's best if you don't hold out too much hope. Why? Little Fatty and Qi Xianxian asked in unison. Because the disappointment is usually greater. After saying that, he put away Qing Wan and released a blazing blood phoenix. Little Fatty's eyeballs were about to fall out as he watched from the side. Xiao Xiao, Xiaojie? You actually have 2 mystic beasts? Is this a FF Phoenix? Forgive Little Fatty for stuttering, but he had rarely seen a mystic cultivator who could have 2 mystic beasts at once. Little Fatty didn't notice that Qi Xianxian, who was standing beside him, was already petrified. Qi Xianxian was very clear that Jojo still had a little white snake by his side. The blazing blood fire phoenix proudly swayed its tail and flew to Auber's side. When she leaped up, the fire phoenix soared into the sky with a whoosh. It spread its wings, which were burning with flames. The man and the phoenix had just flown to the middle of the lava when they heard a splash. Countless saber-toothed red fish that were over a meter long jumped out of the lava and opened their mouths that were filled with sharp teeth, biting towards Auber and the fire phoenix. Screech! The blood-blazed phoenix let out an angry cry, and a raging wall of fire instantly appeared beneath it. Like building a wall of flames, the sword-toothed red fish that jumped up to bite were all smashed down by the wall of flames. Auber pointed at Qi Xianxian and the Little Fatty. The blood-blazed phoenix turned around and dived towards the 2 of them. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty's hearts thumped wildly at the same time. Although they knew that the phoenix would not attack them, they could only watch helplessly as an incomparably huge phoenix swooped down towards them. The heat wave that assaulted their faces instantly enveloped them. That kind of feeling was incomparably satisfying. Auber reached out and pulled, throwing the 2 of them directly onto the fire phoenix's back. The fire phoenix turned around, and its wings drew a lonely arc in the air as it flew towards the opposite side of the lava. To make up for yesterday's episode. Chapter 16:16. The saber-toothed red fish leaped out of the lava and jumped 100 meters, but because it crashed into the firewall, it was slapped down by the heat of the flames. Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty both heaved a sigh of relief and sat upright on the blazing blood fire phoenix's back, not daring to look around. After a sharp and clear cry, the blazing blood fire phoenix flapped its huge wings and fluttered to the front of the lava mountain range, flying straight up the mountain. Little Fatty instantly felt that hugging the little girl's thigh was the right thing to do. Otherwise, it would be an impossible task for that little tortoise of his to climb up this 1,000-level lava mountain range with only his little tortoise. The blazing blood fire phoenix's aura was vast and mighty, and its heavy ancient phoenix aura directly crushed all the hibernating beasts on the lava mountain range. The beasts that originally wanted to climb out to take a look at Feng Zi could only hug their heads and lie in their cave abodes, not daring to come out. This was the first time Arbor realized that this egg was so useful. She raised a small hand and rubbed its furry head, saying earnestly, "Giving you so much black spirit jade isn't completely ineffective." Ever since knowing that there might be black spirit jade in the frigid pond, the little fellow had always left it alone. Actually, she was really a very generous little master to her beasts. The blazing blood fire phoenix squatted in the frigid pond and ate more than 1,000 pieces of black spirit jade, but she didn't say anything and just let it do as it pleased. Even when Little Tree repeatedly slandered her and asked her to kick that wasteful phoenix egg out of the frigid pond, she didn't pay attention to Little Ball. Black spirit jade was not only good for replenishing the 5 spirits, but also had a great nourishing effect on beasts of divine beast rank and above. It was a pity that this plaything was something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Who knew if there were any extra black spirit jade at the bottom of the frigid pond? Arbor's gaze flickered. She raised a small hand and gently rubbed the blazing blood fire phoenix's head again. "Hua, Master wants to ask you something. Is there any more black spirit jade at the bottom of the frigid pond?" The blazing blood fire phoenix nodded vigorously. "There's still a lot. Master, when are you going to take a look? I'll bring you there." Arbor nodded. "Don't worry. Let's go to the peak first." "Hey, look. There seems to be a person standing on the rock." Arbor looked in the direction that Little Fatty was pointing at. Indeed, on a protruding rock at the peak of the mountain, there stood a fool waving a little yellow flag. He looks like a fool." The little yellow flag was clearly being waved at them. "Waving what?" "Wave your sister." If he did not bring the students up the mountain, the students would have to think of a way by themselves. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. "No one." "Chi Xian Xian, Little Fatty, screech." The blazing blood fire phoenix let out a shrill cry and flew towards the peak of the lava mountain range. The force of the dive brought about gusts of strong wind, rolling up sand and stones that almost blinded the eyes of everyone on the peak. Many female students subconsciously reached out to cover the sand in front of their eyes, choking on the sand and coughing. Boom! The phoenix spread its wings and landed on the peak of the mountain. Its gorgeous fiery red feathers gently spread out and almost everyone was forced to retreat. There was almost no place to stand. Wow! Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Is it a mystic beast? Chapter 16-17. I think I've seen it before in the Book of Divine Beasts and Strange Creatures. It's an ancient fire phoenix. Damn, which aristocratic family's young miss came to this godforsaken academy to study? Arbor stretched out her hand. The blazing blood fire phoenix let out a cry, turned into a ball of fire, and rushed into her body, returning to Paradise Planet to rest. There were many young men and women standing on the peak. Many pairs of eyes looked at Arbor, Chi Xian Xian, and Little Fatty in astonishment. Chi Xian Xian and Little Fatty, who were following Miss Chow, suddenly felt a huge pressure. What was going on with this situation where everyone was looking at them? Cough, cough, cough. The pitiful guy waving the little yellow flag on the rock quickly flew down, choking on a mouthful of sand. He squinted his eyes and said angrily, "You guys? Who are you guys? Why did you trespass into our elite academy?" Arbor turned her head and looked coldly at the young man. He was dressed in a green robe, which was very plain. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and looked very silly. Chi Xian Xian put her hands on her waist and shouted angrily, "Didn't your academy recruit students and ask us to come? You still have the nerve to say that? Setting such a difficult test, are you recruiting students or trying to kill people?" What did you say? What test? The Red River at the foot of the mountain is formed by lava. It's surrounded by the mountain. Other than flying, how can you walk? The green-robed young man was reprimanded by Qi Xianxian, and he stammered, We sent people to the foot of the mountain a few days ago to receive you. You missed the time to go up the mountain. Who knew that this was the last day, and there were still people coming up the mountain? Moreover, they came up the mountain riding on a fire phoenix. This was 2F** King high profile. Moreover, he had been standing on the climbing rock and waving the little yellow flag for them to land at the entrance. In the end, these people actually flew all the way to the peak and landed where the crowd gathered. It was obvious that they wanted to show off for everyone to see. As for the other students, they would usually arrive at the Red River 1 or 2 days in advance. Looking at these 3 people, it was obvious that they came from rich families. They couldn't bear hardships at all, and they weren't even serious about studying. Put away your disdain and guesses. Abba suddenly stretched out his leg and drew a dark gray circle on the ground with the tip of his foot. Fight me if you're not convinced. Qi Xianxian, little fatty. Great aunt is so direct. But why did he like this temperament so much? The more he looked at her, the more he liked her. The first one to step out of the circle loses and must apologize. Abba stood in the circle and beckoned the young man with his finger. Come. Cut the crap. Let's fight then. Where's the time to talk nonsense? Everyone was speechless. What was going on? Before they could recover from the shock of seeing an ancient fire phoenix, they were stunned by the scene in front of them that said, If you want to fight, come on. The green-robed young man was obviously amused. He lifted his robe and stepped into the circle. He said angrily, Little girl, it's not good to be too proud. You must know that there's always someone better than you. Always maintain a humble and cautious attitude. Boom! Xiao Mu grabbed his arm and with a flip of her hand, she pinned the green-clothed man to the ground, causing his left cheek to crash into the dirt. Chapter 16:18. Only when the green-clothed man felt his face come into contact with the ground and smelled the scent of yellow soil did he realize with shock that he had been pressed to the ground with a single hand in the blink of an eye. Oh my God! He was a man. No, he was a man who was about to break through to become a level 2 spirit master, but he was actually instantly put down by a girl who looked like she was 14 or 15. How could he endure this? I don't need to be cautious when dealing with you guys. Abba let go of her hand and took half a step back. She narrowed her eyes and waved at him. Again. The green-clothed man only felt a burning sensation on his face, and he crawled up from the ground with his face covered in grime. He looked at Xiao Mu in embarrassment and coughed lightly as he said, Little miss, I was careless just now. This time I won't hold back. You have to be careful. Boom! Abba dodged and quickly closed in on him. She lifted her leg and kicked. Even though the green-clothed man had already reacted quickly and stretched out his 2 hands to cover his body with spiritual energy, he still couldn't withstand Abba's fierce kick. In an instant, the green-clothed man flew out of the circle, and the surrounding students hurriedly retreated. After the man was kicked out of the circle, he fell to the ground with a thud. This time, everyone looked at Abba with a bit of fear in their eyes. The first time she had single-handedly subdued a level 2 spirit master, it could be said that it was due to luck. But now, in the instant of a direct hit, the level 2 spirit master couldn't even block one of her moves. This was strength. Following Xiao Mu's light footsteps forward, the surroundings were deathly silent. Everyone subconsciously retreated a few steps, emptying out a crescent-shaped space in the center. Abba walked in front of the green-clothed man and looked at him coldly. Apologize. The green-clothed man couldn't suppress the bitterness in his heart. He nodded and said softly, I'm sorry, it was my wild guess. Be more careful next time. If you don't understand the situation, don't look at people with contempt, Abba said coldly. We just got lost, that's why we're late. Little Fatty, who was still immersed in the words this little girl is so formidable, slipped and almost fell. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch a few times as he cursed in his heart. What an honest little grand-aunt. Actually, it was fine if he didn't add the last sentence. What are you all doing? Just as the crowd was chattering away, a cold voice swept through the crowd, instantly suppressing everyone's voices. A middle-aged man in his 40s slowly walked over. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and they immediately locked onto Arba's group. Are you the ones causing trouble? The little fatty and Qi Xianxian met each other's eyes before striding forward in unison to stand next to Qiao Mu and look at that middle-aged man together. The middle-aged man sneered, "Were you the ones who rode the fire phoenix to the peak and caused panic?" Little fatty sneered, "A mystical beast can cause them to panic? If you're so weak, you might as well stay at home and embroider. What's the point of cultivating and walking the path of immortality?" Arba's mouth curved slightly and nodded in agreement. Qi Xianxian mocked, "Needles prick embroidery? You might as well stay at home and be a young master or young mistress." You. The group of students' faces turned green and white. Chapter 16-19. The middle-aged man pursed his lips and looked coldly at the three of them. Ladies and young masters of aristocratic families, if you want to show off, then you've come to the wrong place. You should go to the 4 great academies of Sun, Moon and Stars. That is where the real celebrities gather. The middle-aged man said coldly. Arba was instantly impatient. Why did she meet so many self-righteous people everywhere she went? Wouldn't it be better to find a natural abode and cultivate on my own? How could it be worth wasting my time on these inexplicable people and matters? After making up her mind, the little fellow decisively turned around and left. She didn't even bother to say a word and directly waved at Qi Xianxian and little fatty who were behind her. The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. He really didn't expect the student in front of him to have such a bad temper. After saying a few words, she immediately turned around and left. She didn't even bother to explain herself. Jojo. Qi Xianxian hurriedly chased after her. Jojo wasn't even here. What was the point of her staying here? Little fatty turned around and looked at the middle-aged man, then also ran towards the 2 ladies. Wait for me, let's go down the mountain together. You. The middle-aged man secretly clenched his fist and sneered at the 3 of them. So arrogant and unsociable. You're not suitable to study in the top academies. Yes, you're not welcome here. Hurry up and leave. The group of students also started to shout at the same time. Arba turned her head and glanced at them in disdain. She coldly said, "Trash like you are not fit to be my classmates." She could feel a strong sense of rejection from these people. She didn't know why, even though it was the first time she met them, these people were rejecting her, Qi Xianxian and little fatty. Since that was the case, why should she treat them with a generous attitude? This little fellow had always been someone who would respect you tenfold. If you offended her, she would return the favor tenfold. Hence, she really didn't like these students. If they weren't welcome, then so be it. She didn't have to stay in this lousy academy. Arba walked a few steps and was about to summon the blazing blood phoenix to bring them away. All of a sudden, a transparent ladder descended from the sky one after another. At first glance, the ladder was very transparent, but when he looked at it again, he couldn't help but feel slightly shocked. It turned out that this ladder was actually built with water spirits, layer upon layer, as if it had fallen from the 9 heavens. Looking up, one simply couldn't see the end of it. Wow! What a powerful ability to control the spiritual water. Arba and the other 2 blinked their eyes and looked up at the sky. It wasn't just the 3 of them. In fact, all the other students on the lava peak were shocked as well. He had never seen such a shocking scene before. The water spirit stairs spread out and landed on the ground, shining brightly one layer after another, as if that person had an endless amount of spiritual energy that he could squander as he pleased. When the middle-aged man saw the water spirit ladder, he hurriedly bowed in the direction of the ladder. Wei Wei greets Dean Yun. The other disciples weren't stupid. When they saw Instructor Wei Wei bowing respectfully towards the southeast, they hurriedly followed suit and bowed. They saw a man in plain clothes with loose long hair and a cold expression walking down the stairs. His walking speed didn't seem fast, but in a breath's time, he had already arrived in front of Arbor and the other two. Chapter 16:20. The man's aloof gaze instantly locked onto Arbor's left wrist. He could faintly see a jade-green color flash across the flawless jade bracelet. The man's eyes flickered, and his gaze shifted up to land on a small face that was as cold as ice. He was startled and asked, "You're a disciple of the Holy Water Sect?" Arbor was also startled. Only then did she recall that Morong Sun mentioned in her letter that she only needed to show her jade bracelet to the principal of a top-notch academy. She had forgotten about this before. But what could she do even if she remembered now? She had already decided not to stay in this troublesome academy anymore. The little fellow was an unrestrained person who did not want to be restrained by anything. If you insist on doing things according to the rules with her, then I'm sorry, but please scram. What's your name? Arbor swept that man a glance and unwillingly replied, Arbor. The plain-clothed man nodded and beckoned to her. Come with me. Instructor Wei Wei's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he saw this. He hastily walked up to block Principal Yun's path and straightforwardly said, Principal, these students haven't taken the entrance test yet, so logically speaking, you can't directly bring her into the academy. This is against the rules. The middle-aged man said straightforwardly, Moreover, these people have been behaving like young masters and misses from patrician families from start to finish. They don't know the immensity of heaven and earth and only know how to cause trouble. It's truly inappropriate for them to stay in the academy and ruin the learning atmosphere here. It's fine. Unexpectedly, Principal Yun tossed 2 words at the middle-aged man after he said a bunch of things. This truly was a bit. The middle-aged man only felt that his efforts were strenuous and unrewarding. When he looked up again, Principal Yun looked like he had already made up his mind, so he shut his mouth and did not say anything else. Principal Yun beckoned to Arbor again. Come with me. Arbor was taken aback. Although this principal's expression was aloof, his attitude towards her was still quite amiable. As the saying went, don't slap a smiling person. The little fellow naturally could not go against his wishes, so she walked behind him. There seemed to be a voice in Arbor's heart that kept telling her that she had to follow him. She had to follow him. Wait. Arbor turned his head and looked at little Fatty and Qi Xianxian. The 2 of them came with me. If we want to leave, we will leave together. If we want to stay, we will stay together. Dean Yun turned to look at Qi Xianxian and little Fatty before nodding and saying, Wei Wei. Dean. The middle-aged man bowed. Arrange for the 2 of them to take the entrance test with everyone else. Wei Wei was stunned for a moment. He understood Dean Yun very well. Since he had already made a decision, there was no point in saying anything more. Thus, he nodded and said yes. There were stone huts all over the mountain. The rocks were all crimson red. Perhaps it was due to the influence of the lava circulation deep underground, but the entire lava mountain range looked bright red. Arbor followed Yun Zong all the way and passed by many small stone houses made of red bricks. When the 2 of them reached the peak of the lava mountain, Dean Yun suddenly stopped and turned to look at her. You're Arbor. Arbor nodded. I'm Arbor. Yun Zong sighed. You are a disciple of the Holy Water Sect, so you can stay and study in our top-notch academy with peace of mind in the future. You should also be new here, so there are still many things you need to learn. Have you comprehended the power of the 5 spirits? Arbor nodded. Activate the power of the 5 spirits in your body and let me see. I'm going to catch up on my sleep tomorrow. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.